AITA for walking out of couples therapy and returning my ring after she said she settled for me? Hi, I never thought I'd be one of those guys posting their relationship disaster online, but here we are. What happened 3 weeks ago in a therapist's office still feels surreal, and I need to get it off my chest. I'm Adam, 31. I met my now ex-fiancée, Catherine, 29, at a mutual friend's wedding 3 years ago. She was a bridesmaid, I was a groomsman, and we hit it off at the reception. The first 6 months were great. We had chemistry, we laughed at the same dumb shows, and she seemed genuinely interested in my work as a civil engineer, even when I'd start rambling about load calculations and soil compression tests. She would come over to my place most weekends. We'd cook together, watch movies, just existing in that easy new relationship bubble where everything feels effortless. I introduced her to Tyler and his wife, Holly, within the first month. They seemed to like her well enough, though Tyler pulled me aside after that first meeting with an expression I couldn't quite read. Tyler is my best friend from high school. He's a general contractor. He's married to his high school sweetheart, Holly, and they have 2 kids. He's the kind of friend who doesn't sugarcoat anything. If something's off, he'll tell you straight up. When I started dating Catherine, he met her at a barbecue and later told me exactly this. She's nice, but something about her feels performed, like she's auditioning. I brushed it off because I was into her. You're overthinking it, I told him. Not everyone is as blunt as Holly. Some people are just more polished. Polished, he repeated, unconvinced. Sure, man. Just keep your eyes open. About a year into our relationship, Catherine started dropping comments about her ex. At first, they were subtle. Someone I used to date, a guy I knew in college. Then the details became more specific. His name was Brandon. They dated for 4 years at Colorado State. He was apparently a finance star who moved to New York for a high-paying job right after graduation, which essentially ended the relationship. He was the one that got away, she said once while we were watching a movie. She laughed it off like it was a joke, but I noticed the wistful tone, like she was talking about a missed opportunity more than an ex-boyfriend. There was a dreaminess in her voice that twisted my gut, though I couldn't explain why at the time. Everyone has an ex, I told Tyler when he asked about it during a fishing trip. It doesn't mean anything. Sure, he replied, casting his line. But most people don't talk about their exes like there's some perfect being that slipped through their fingers. Holly never talks about her high school boyfriend like he's a mythical creature. She barely remembers his last name. I should have paid more attention, but I was in that phase of a relationship where you explain away the red flags because you want it to work. You tell yourself stories. She's just being open about her past. She feels comfortable sharing with me. That means she trusts me. All the lies we tell ourselves to avoid uncomfortable truths. Around the 18-month mark, I proposed. We had just gotten back from a weekend trip to Breckenridge, and everything felt right. I'd saved up for a nice ring, not over the top, but solid, a 1.5-carat princess-cut diamond she'd mentioned liking months earlier when we were window shopping. I proposed at her favorite Italian restaurant downtown, the one with the patio and the string lights. I got down on one knee between the appetizer and the main course. She cried, said yes, and immediately posted it on Instagram with the caption, "He put a ring on it." Finally settling down with my forever person. Looking back, that phrase, settling down, hits differently now. At the time, I thought it was just an expression, getting married, building a life. I didn't realize she meant it literally, that she was settling for what was available instead of holding out for what she truly wanted. The engagement was when things started to feel off. We moved in together about 2 months after the proposal. She was renting a studio across town, and it just made financial sense. Her lease was up, and we were getting married anyway. Why pay 2 rents when we could save and start our life together? But living together revealed patterns I hadn't noticed when we were dating separately. For one, she never really contributed to making the house feel like ours. I'd ask her for input on furniture or decor, and she'd just shrug and say, "Whatever you think is best." At first, I thought she was just easygoing. Over time, I realized she just didn't care about making my house our home, because she was never truly invested in the idea of a future together. She had periods where she'd spend hours scrolling through social media, especially Instagram and Facebook. I'd catch her looking at profiles of people from her college days, and when I'd ask who she was looking at, she'd quickly close the app and say, "No one, just old friends." But I saw the name Brandon pop up more than once before she swiped it away. One night, I woke up around 2 a.m. to use the bathroom and saw light coming from under our bedroom door. I walked in to find her in bed, phone in hand, scrolling through someone's Instagram. She nearly dropped the phone when she saw me. "God, you scared me," she said, putting a hand to her chest. "Sorry, who are you stalking it to in the morning?" I asked jokingly, trying to lighten the moment. "No one. I just couldn't sleep." He placed her phone face down on the nightstand. The screen immediately went dark. I didn't push it at the time. I wish I had. Then there was the phone thing. Catherine started taking it everywhere with her, to the bathroom, into the kitchen, even when she was just running out to the car for something. When I mentioned it once, she got defensive. "I'm allowed to have my privacy, aren't I? Or do you need to monitor my every move?" "That's not what I meant," I said, taken aback by her reaction. "I just noticed you've been attached to your phone lately." "Well, I'm planning a wedding. There are a lot of vendors to coordinate with." It sounded reasonable. Wedding planning is stressful. I let it go, but something felt uneasy. She had never been secretive with her phone before. She used to leave it on the coffee table, face up, and neither of us cared if the other saw a notification. Now it was like she was guarding state secrets. But the biggest red flag was how she talked about the wedding versus how she talked about our future. She was excited about the dress, the venue, the photographer, all the aesthetics of the wedding day. She'd spend hours on Pinterest saving ideas for centerpieces and color schemes. But when I bring up what came after, buying a bigger house, starting a family, building a life together, she would get vague and change the subject. "Let's just focus on the wedding first," she'd say. "One thing at a time." "But shouldn't we talk about if we want kids? How many? When?" I'd press. "There's time for all that. Don't pressure me." It felt like she was excited for the event, but not the marriage. Like she wanted the Instagram-worthy wedding but hadn't thought beyond it, or didn't want to. The wedding was scheduled for 6 months out. We had the dates set, the venue booked, a beautiful barn-style place about 30 minutes outside of Denver, and the save-the-date sent. Everything was moving forward. But 3 months before the big day, Catherine suggested we go to couples therapy. Not because anything was wrong, she assured me. Just to make sure we start our marriage off on the right foot. A lot of couples do premarital counseling. It seemed reasonable. I knew several married couples who had done it and said it helped them communicate better. I agreed. She found a therapist named Dr. Elaine Carter, who specialized in couples therapy and premarital issues. Dr. Carter had an office in a professional building downtown, one of those converted historic buildings with exposed brick and modern furniture. Our first session was pretty standard. Introductions, talking about our relationship, our history, our goals. Dr. Carter was in her 50s. She was professional but warm, with the kind of presence that makes you feel like you can say anything without being judged. She asked good questions and made us both feel heard. "So what brings you in today?" she asked during that first session. "We want to start our marriage on a strong foundation," Catherine said, reaching over to squeeze my hand. "Make sure we're communicating well and are on the same page about everything." Dr. Carter nodded. "That's a wonderful goal. So many couples wait until they're in crisis to seek therapy. Coming in preventatively shows a real commitment to the relationship." At that moment, I felt good about the whole thing. Look at us, I thought. Mature adults investing in our relationship. I should have wondered why Catherine was suddenly so invested in making sure we were on the same page when she'd spent the last year dodging any serious conversations about our future. Sessions 2 and 3 were more of the same. We talked about communication styles, conflict resolution, and how we would handle finances. Catherine said she wanted to keep our accounts separate at first. I suggested a joint account for household expenses and separate accounts for personal spending. We hammered out the details. Nothing out of the ordinary. Catherine seemed engaged, taking it seriously. I thought maybe this was really helping us. Dr. Carter assigned us exercises between sessions, communication homework, she called it. We were supposed to set aside time each week to discuss specific topics without distractions, how we'd handle holidays with both families, what our sleep schedules were like, and if we were compatible, and the division of household chores. These conversations were fine, but they were surface level. We could agree on who did the dishes and who did the laundry, but whenever I tried to go deeper, about values, about what kind of parents we'd be, about long-term goals, Catherine would steer the conversation back. "Let's just stick to the homework topic," she'd say. as if talking about our actual future was going off script. Session 4 was where it all fell apart. We arrived on time and took our usual seats on Dr. Carter's upholstered couch. The office was one of those calming spaces, neutral colors, soft lighting, and a white noise machine outside the door to ensure privacy. Dr. Carter had her notebook ready, gave us both a smile, and started with her usual opening. So, how have things been since our last session? Catherine started by talking about work stress and wedding logistics. Her boss was pushing to launch a major campaign right before our wedding date, and she was worried she'd be too stressed to enjoy the day. I nodded along, adding a few details about my own work projects. It all seemed normal. We were getting into our therapy rhythm, having these measured, controlled therapeutic conversations. Then, Dr. Carter shifted her focus. I want to talk about expectations, she said, looking at both of us. Her expression was neutral, but there was an intentionality in her tone. Sometimes, people enter a marriage with different expectations about what the relationship means, what they're getting, and what they're giving. I'd like for each of you to be really honest about why you're choosing to marry your partner. She looked at me first. Adam, why are you marrying Catherine? Easy question. I'd thought about it a lot. Because I love her. She's smart, funny, ambitious. We have great chemistry, and I can see us building a real future together. She's the person I want to come home to every day. When I picture my life in 10, 20, 30 years, she's in that picture. I want to build something lasting with her. Dr. Carter nodded, taking a few notes. Catherine, same question. Why are you marrying Adam? There was a pause. It was barely a second too long. In retrospect, that pause should have told me everything. Catherine shifted in her seat and tucked her hair behind her ear, a nervous habit I'd noticed before when she felt uncomfortable or unsure. Well, she began, her voice careful, measured. Adam is stable. He's reliable. He has his life together, which is attractive. He treats me well, and I can see him being a good husband and father. Dr. Carter waited, her pen hovering over her notepad. The silence stretched, and there was another pause, longer this time. I could feel the air in the room change, like static electricity building before a storm. I guess, Catherine looked at me, then back at Dr. Carter. Her jaw was tight, her hands clasped in her lap. I guess if I'm being completely honest, and I know that's the point of being here, Adam wasn't my first choice. There was someone else I wanted to be with, but that didn't work out. So when Adam came along and was so wonderful and so stable and so clearly into me, it just felt like the right move, like the adult decision. The room went completely silent. I could hear the white noise machine outside the door, the distant sound of traffic outside, the air conditioner kicking on. My brain was trying to process what I had just heard, but my thoughts were moving like they were in wet cement. First choice. Those words were ringing in my head. I wasn't her first choice. Dr. Carter's expression remained neutral. Professional. When you say first choice, can you expand on that a little? And then Catherine just kept talking, and I swear it felt like watching a car crash in slow motion. You know what's happening, you know it's going to be awful, but you can't look away, and you can't stop it. My ex-boyfriend, Brandon. We broke up because he moved to New York for his career. But we kind of kept in touch, off and on. He's doing really well now. He's a VP at an investment firm, makes a ton of money. When Adam and I started dating, I was still kind of hoping Brandon would come back or ask me to move to New York. But he never did. And I realized I needed to get on with my life. I couldn't just wait around forever. She looked at me then, as if she expected me to understand, as if this was a reasonable explanation for why she was marrying me. So I chose Adam because he was available and he wanted me. He was ready to commit, ready for marriage. I settled for him because my first option wasn't available. I just stared at her. Settled. She said it like she was talking about choosing a backup college after getting rejected from her dream school. Like I was a secondary option, a consolation prize, a good enough, because her real preference was off the table. 3 years. 3 years I had spent loving this woman, building a life with her, planning a future, saving money for our wedding, talking about baby names, looking at bigger houses. And the whole time, I was her plan B. Her settle for. Good enough, because she couldn't have what she really wanted. Dr. Carter turned to me. Her voice was soft but professional. Adam, how are you feeling about what Catherine just shared? The word came out before I could even think. Relieved. Both Catherine and Dr. Carter looked at me, surprised. Catherine's mouth even fell open a little. Relieved? Dr. Carter repeated, leaning forward slightly. Yeah, I said, and I felt this strange calm wash over me. Relieved I'm finding this out now and not after we're married. Relieved that I don't have to spend the rest of my life wondering why she seems disconnected. Relieved that I can stop trying to figure out what I'm doing wrong when the problem, apparently, is just that I'm not someone else. I stood up, grabbing my jacket from the back of the couch. My hands were steady. My mind was clear. I looked directly at Catherine. It's over. We're done. Thanks for finally being honest. Adam, wait, Catherine said, reaching for my arm, but I stepped back. Dr. Carter, thank you for your time, I said, pulling out my wallet and putting cash on the coffee table to cover the session. I think this just saved me a lot of future therapy bills. I walked out of that office and went straight to my truck in the parking garage. My hands were shaking as I turned the key in the ignition, the adrenaline finally hitting my system, but my mind was crystal clear. 3 years. 3 years loving this woman, building a life with her, planning a future, and I was her plan B. Her I settled. Her good enough, because the real prize wasn't available. The drive to the jewelry store was automatic. I barely remember getting on the highway, changing lanes, parking. I just kept hearing those words over and over in my head. I settled for him because my first option wasn't available. I drove straight to the jewelry store where I'd bought the ring. It was 4:45 p.m. They closed at 6. The same guy who had helped me pick it out 6 months earlier greeted me at the counter, smiling, until he saw my face. Hey, Adam, how's the engagement, G? It's not, I said flatly, pulling the receipt from my wallet. I'd kept it with the certificate of authenticity and insurance information. I need to return this. His smile faded. He looked genuinely sympathetic. I'm really sorry to hear that, man. Let me see what I can do. The return policy was strict, 30 days, minus a 20% restocking fee. We were well past 30 days, but the guy did me a solid. His name tag said Elliot. He looked at me like he'd been in the exact same spot I was in. Look, technically, we can't take it back after 30 days, Elliot said in a low voice, glancing toward the back office. But my manager's gone for the day, and you look like a good guy having a rough day. I can give you store credit for the full value. Does that work for you? Yeah, I said, my throat tight. That works. I walked out with $12,800 in store credit and a receipt. The whole transaction took maybe 15 minutes. By my estimate, Catherine was probably still in Dr. Carter's office, trying to explain or justify or backtrack, trying to make it sound less devastating than it was. I drove home, went straight to my bedroom, and started packing her things. Not in a rage, not throwing things, but methodically, boxing up her clothes, her toiletries, all the random stuff she'd accumulated in my house over the last year. Her collection of throw pillows she had insisted we needed, her fancy espresso machine that cost more than my monthly food budget, her stack of self-help books she never actually read but displayed on the shelf like trophies. I called Tyler while I worked, phone on speaker while I folded her sweaters. What's up, he answered. I could hear his kids laughing about something in the background. I need your truck and some help moving boxes. Can you come over? The background noise on his end immediately went quiet. He must have heard something in my voice. Yeah, man. Be there in 20. What happened? I'll tell you when you get here. Tyler showed up with Holly, who immediately gave me a hug when she saw my face and the boxes piled in the living room. Oh, honey, what happened? I told them everything as we loaded Catherine's belongings into Tyler's truck. Every detail of the therapy session, every word she said, the way she looked at me like I was supposed to understand why she'd settled for me. Holly was furious, her face getting redder with each detail. Tyler just kept shaking his head, loading the boxes with more force than necessary. I knew something was off with her, he said, heaving a box of shoes into the truck bed. I didn't want to say I told you so, but man, I told you so. You did, I admitted. I should have listened. Where are we taking this stuff? Holly asked, taping another box shut. Her best friend's place, I said, pulling up the address on my phone. We drove the boxes to her friend Morgan's apartment, a trendy new high-rise in Lodo that Morgan was always bragging about on Instagram. We left them by the door with a note I'd scrawled on the back of a receipt. Catherine, your things. Do not contact me. My phone had been buzzing nonstop since I left the therapist's office. When I finally checked it, I had 17 missed calls from Catherine. Texts ranged from, "Adam, please let me explain," to "You're overreacting," to "I didn't mean it like that." Each message became progressively more desperate. "That came out wrong. Please call me. You're being unfair. I was just trying to be vulnerable, like Dr. Carter asked. Adam, I love you. You know I love you. Where are you? Your truck isn't home. Seriously, you're not going to answer me? This is childish. We need to talk about this like adults." I blocked her number and went back home. Tyler and Holly stayed for a while longer, ordered a pizza, and just sat with me. We didn't talk much. We didn't need to. Just their presence was enough. "You need anything, you call us," Holly said before they left. "Any time of night, doesn't matter. We're here." The next morning, I woke up to find Catherine's car in my driveway. She was sitting on the front porch steps, makeup smeared, wearing the same clothes from the day before. She'd clearly been crying all night. When I opened the door, she jumped up as if she'd been waiting for hours. She probably had. "Adam, thank God. We need to talk. You have to let me explain." "There's nothing to explain," I said calmly, keeping the screen door between us. "You were honest yesterday. Probably the most honest you've been since we met. I'm Plan B, the safe choice, the guy you settled for because your first choice didn't want you. I heard you loud and clear. That came out wrong. I was nervous, and Dr. Carter was pushing me to be vulnerable. I just said things without thinking. I didn't interrupt her. You weren't nervous. You were being honest. And you know what? I believe you. I believe that's exactly how you feel, how you've always felt. But I love you," she said, trying to reach for my hand through the door. I took a step back, keeping the distance between us. "Maybe you love me in your own way, but you love the idea of me more than you love me. You love that I'm stable and reliable and have my life together. You love that I make you look good to your friends and family. You love that I was ready when you decided you needed to be done pining for Brandon. But you don't love me. You're settling." "That's not true." Your exact words were, "I settled for him because my first option wasn't available." That's not out of context. That wasn't a slip of the tongue. That was the truth finally coming out after 3 years of pretending. She started crying harder, mascara running down her cheeks in dark streaks. "Please, Adam, can't we work through this? Can we go back to therapy?" "No. It's done. The ring is returned. I've already called the wedding venue. You'll get an email about the cancellation by the end of the day. I'm keeping the house because it was mine before I met you. Your things are at Morgan's. We're done. You can't just throw away 3 years. I'm not throwing anything away. You already did that when you told a room full of people, well, 3 people, but it still counts, that I'm your consolation prize, that you're settling for me." Those words came out of your mouth, Catherine. Own them. I went back inside and locked the door. She stayed on the porch for another 10 minutes, calling my name, apologizing, pleading. I watched through the window as she finally got in her car and drove away, tires screeching a little as she took the corner too fast. Over the next week, the fallout was spectacular. Catherine tried to control the narrative, posting vague things on social media about relationships ending and people showing their true colors. She posted a picture of herself looking sad with a caption that read, "When someone can't handle honest communication and finding out who their partner really is in the hard moments." Her Instagram story was a series of quotes. "Not everyone can handle a strong, honest woman. True love means working through the tough conversations. Some people want perfection instead of authenticity." But our mutual friends started asking questions. When pressed, Catherine apparently told them I had blown up over nothing and was being dramatic and immature. She painted herself as the victim, the brave woman who had been vulnerable in therapy only to have her fiancé abandon her for speaking her truth. That narrative lasted for exactly 3 days. It lasted until Holly, Tyler's wife, who has zero tolerance for nonsense, posted on Facebook. PSA. If you tell your fiancé in couples therapy that he was your plan B and you settled for him because your first option wasn't available, you don't get to play the victim when he leaves. Own your words, Catherine. Holly tagged Catherine and several of our mutual friends. The post exploded. People started asking questions. Catherine's story fell apart quickly because, surprise, several people had already wondered about her fixation on her ex. The comments started pouring in. One friend commented, "This is about Brandon, isn't it? You literally told me last month you'd leave Adam if Brandon ever moved back to Denver." Another friend, "You showed us Brandon's Instagram like 5 times at girls' night and said, 'This is what I could have had.'" Someone else. Remember when we ran into Brandon's cousin at that bar, and you spent 20 minutes asking about him? That was weird. The comments kept coming, each one adding another piece to the puzzle. People who had noticed things but hadn't said anything were suddenly connecting the dots. Catherine deleted her social media within 24 hours. Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all gone. But the screenshots had already made the rounds. Her friends tried to contact me. Morgan called from Catherine's phone. I had only blocked Catherine's number. Adam, you're being unreasonable. Catherine made a mistake. She was just being vulnerable in therapy, like the therapist asked her to, and you punished her for it. She wasn't being vulnerable. I corrected. She was being honest. There's a big difference. I'm not punishing her. I'm just not signing up to be someone's second choice for the rest of my life. Everyone has an ex. Everyone thinks about people sometimes. There's a massive difference between having an ex and telling your current partner, in front of a therapist, that you settled for him because your true first choice isn't available. That's not thinking about an ex sometimes. That's admitting you never really wanted me in the first place. Don't call me again. I hung up and blocked that number, too. My family was incredible through all of this. My dad came over the day after the therapy session, brought steaks, and we grilled them in the backyard. We didn't talk about it much. We just existed in the same space while he made sure I was eating and functioning. He did eventually ask what happened, and when I told him, he just shook his head. Some people don't know what they have until it's gone, he said, flipping the steaks. Your mother and I knew something was off with her, too focused on appearances, not enough on substance. But you seemed happy, so we kept our mouths shut. I wish you'd said something. And would you have listened? He asked, looking me in the eye. Probably not. My mom called me every day just to check in. Sometimes we'd talk for an hour about nothing in particular. Her garden, neighborhood drama, what she was watching on TV. Sometimes it was just a 5-minute call. Are you eating? Sleeping? Do you need anything? She drove down from Fort Collins twice that first week, bringing containers of food and just sitting with me. You did the right thing, she told me on one of those visits. I know it hurts now, but imagine finding this out after you were married with kids. I keep thinking about that, I admitted. What if Brandon had moved back to Denver after we got married? Would she have left me then? Had an affair? Maybe, my mom said honestly, and that's exactly why you had to end it now. You can't build a life with someone who is waiting for something better to come along. Work was a good distraction. I threw myself into the infrastructure project I was leading, staying late and volunteering for extra site visits. My boss noticed the increased productivity, but didn't ask questions until about 2 weeks later. Adam, you're doing great work, but you're also here until 8 p.m. every night. Everything okay? I gave him the short version. He nodded empathetically. My first engagement ended badly, too. Caught her cheating. Take Friday off. Seriously, go do something for yourself. I took his advice and went up to the mountains with Tyler. We spent the day hiking and fishing, not talking about much. It was exactly what I needed, to be outside, moving my body, focusing on the simple task of casting a line instead of replaying therapy sessions in my head. Meanwhile, Catherine's situation was getting worse through the grapevine. Mostly via Holly, who still talked to some of Catherine's friends, I learned that her parents were furious with her. They had apparently put down $15,000 for the wedding and lost most of it to cancellation fees. Her dad called and gave her a blistering lecture about throwing away a good man over childish fantasies. Her coworkers had seen the Facebook drama and were taking sides, mostly not hers. Apparently, several colleagues had already heard her talk about Brandon during lunch breaks and thought it was weird she was so obsessed with an ex while engaged to someone else. Brandon, the famous ex, somehow caught wind of the situation and sent Catherine a message telling her that he was engaged to someone in New York and to please stop talking about him. Apparently, he'd heard from mutual friends that she was telling people they were still in touch and wanted to make it clear that they'd barely spoken in years. That last detail was particularly satisfying. Her first choice wasn't just unavailable. He was actively asking her to leave him alone. The fantasy she had built in her head had just been shattered by reality. About 3 weeks after the therapy session disaster, I was at Home Depot picking up supplies for a bathroom remodel I'd been putting off when I ran into Catherine. She looked rough, dark circles under her eyes, her hair thrown up messily, wearing sweatpants and a huge sweatshirt. When she saw me, her face went through a series of emotions: surprise, hope, shame, desperation. Adam, she said, blocking my path to the paint aisle. Please, can we just talk for 5 minutes? I don't think that's a good idea. I've been going to therapy. Individual therapy. Dr. Carter recommended it. I'm working on my attachment issues and why I couldn't let go of the past. That's good, I said, and I meant it. I hope therapy helps you. But it doesn't change anything between us. I realized I was wrong about everything. You weren't my second choice. Yes, I was. You said it, and you meant it. You felt it when you said it. And I think you still feel it now, even if you wish you didn't. I was confused. I thought I wanted Brandon, but I didn't really. I wanted the fantasy of him, the idea of what that life could have been. You were real. You are real. And I threw it all away. Yes, you did. Her eyes filled with tears. Is there really no chance? Nothing I can do. I looked at her, really looked at her, and I felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, just a faint sense of relief that this wasn't my problem anymore, that her issues and her therapy and her regrets were no longer burdens I had to carry. Catherine, even if I believed you, and I'm not sure I do, the damage is done. I can't marry someone who spent our entire relationship wishing I was someone else. I can't build a life with someone who sees me as the safe, boring option they settled for. You deserve to be with someone you actually choose first, not someone you settle for because your real preference isn't available. And I deserve to be with someone who chooses me first, not as a plan B. I do choose you. You choose not to be alone. There's a difference. You're not sad you lost me. You're sad your plan B walked out, and now you have no one. I walked past her and got the paint swatches I needed. She didn't follow. When I glanced back from the checkout line, she was gone. That night, Tyler and Holly came over with dinner, pizza from our favorite spot, and some craft beers. We ate and watched terrible reality TV, and I felt more at peace than I had in months, maybe years. You look lighter, Holly observed from where she sat with her feet tucked under her on my couch. Like a weight's been lifted. Because it has, I said. I spent 2 years trying to figure out why nothing I did ever seemed to be quite enough. Why she always seemed a little distant, a little checked out. Turns out, it had nothing to do with me. It was never about me. Her loss, Tyler said, raising his beer. To my best friend dodging a massive bullet and not even blinking. We clinked our bottles. The next week settled into a new rhythm. I focused on work, spent time with friends, and started hitting the gym more consistently. My house, which at first felt uncomfortably empty, now just felt peaceful. I could leave my tools out, watch whatever I wanted, just exist without wondering if I was measuring up to the ghost of a past relationship. I did have one last contact from Catherine's world. About a month after the Home Depot run-in, her mother called me. I almost didn't answer. It was a number I didn't recognize, but curiosity won. Adam, this is Patricia, Catherine's mom. Hi, Patricia. What can I do for you? She sighed heavily. I want to apologize. For Catherine, but also for myself and Gregory. We should have seen what was happening. We should have raised her better than to treat someone the way she treated you. We failed there, and you paid the price for it. I wasn't expecting that. I appreciate you saying that. She's devastated, you know. Completely heartbroken. But that's on her. She did this to herself. Another sigh. You were good to her. You would have been a wonderful son-in-law. I'm sorry we're not going to see that future. Gregory wanted me to tell you he's sorry, too. He's not good with phone calls, but he feels terrible about all of this. Tell him I appreciate that. You both were always kind to me. You take care of yourself, Adam. You deserve someone who loves you for real, who chooses you first, every single day, without a second thought. Thanks. You and Gregory, too. After I hung up, I sat on my back porch, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink, and I realized I was completely done with all of it. The anger was gone, the hurt was gone. I wasn't carrying Catherine anymore. Not her choices, not her regrets, not her inability to be honest about what she wanted. As for Catherine, the last I heard through the grapevine is that she moved to Seattle for a fresh start. New city, new job, new life. I hope she figures out what she's looking for. I hope she learns how to be honest with herself and whoever she dates next. But mostly, I hope she learns that people aren't interchangeable. That telling someone they're your plan B isn't being vulnerable, it's being cruel. And that some words, once they're said, can't be taken back. So yeah, that's my story. The woman I was going to marry told a therapist and me that I was her consolation prize, and I walked away. Best decision I ever made. Comment. What a powerful story, right? It's a tough but crucial reminder that sometimes the most painful truths are the ones that set us free. Adam didn't just walk away from a relationship. He walked toward his own self-worth. Ultimately, we all deserve to be someone's first choice, chosen with enthusiasm and without a doubt. Never settle for being just an option when you are worthy of being a priority. If you like the stories, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.